going to repeat that. You will make $1 million within 3 years of your first day of employment at JT Martin.
Who doesn't enjoy or desire money? After all, it's what keeps the global economies and our everyday lives in motion. Money, however, involves more than just making and spending it. Let's dig a little deeper into the language of money. Money is needed by all. Businesses aim to make a profit and produce income. To live life on their terms, people long for financial freedom. The study of trends and insights, a comprehension of financial statements and how they're used, as well as many other skills are required because money language is complex. Why do the wealthy continue to prosper while you struggle to make ends meet by consuming microwaved ramen every day? Since the epidemic of 2020, it's been abundantly clear that the wealthy continue to amass enormous wealth, while the rest of the globe was in dire straits. Why the Rich Are Getting Richer by Robert Kiyosaki lays it out in the most straightforward terms possible. There's only one distinction between the poor, middle class, and rich, according to Robert Kiyosaki. The key distinction is education. Financial education in addition to formal education. Rich individuals, according to Robert Kiyosaki, are schooled in finance. Since they were young, they've been providing their kids with this education. As a result, wealthy people's children frequently become wealthy. What exactly does financial literacy include now? There are a lot of concepts and practices in financial education. Let's talk about them in brief. Cash flow is the lifeblood of any organization or home. You won't have a household or a business if you dry that up. Kiyosaki uses a cash flow diagram, and he emphasizes that the wealthy understand the distinction between an asset and a liability and purchase assets. That brings up the question, what are assets and liabilities? Asset means putting money into one's pockets, and liability means taking money away from your pocket. By describing how the middle class receives their wage and pays off their debts, mortgages, loans, credit card debt, and their costs like food, living expenses, etc., with little money left over at the end of the month, Kiyosaki explains it really well. Since debt must be handled and loans must be repaid to avoid being pursued by creditors, I believe this is a very regular occurrence for the majority of people. He draws a comparison between this and a wealthy person who invests their money in their assets, such as real estate, securities, bonds, intellectual property, etc., and describes how those assets provide income and returns that are invested in his assets. Kiyosaki also recommends paying yourself last when you get paid. Coming back to cash flow, so what is cash flow? Your income less your expenses during a specific period is referred to as cash flow. This phrase is useful since it can make it obvious what way funds are moving for both individuals and businesses. Cash flow quadrant is the central concept of the same named book by Robert Kiyosaki. And it's a strong one that has significantly influenced my entrepreneurial career in my search for financial freedom. Let's find out more information about each of the 4 quadrants. First off, we have the employee quadrant, or E quadrant. Employees have jobs. The majority of individuals make their living in this area. The company that owns the business is either a small firm or a huge enterprise. In exchange for a paycheck and perks, an employee offers their time, effort, and abilities to a company. The main issue in the E quadrant is this sustained lack of control over revenue. The whim and success of the boss determine the financial future, security, and freedom of the employee. Next is the S, or self-employed quadrant. Compared to an employee, self-employed persons do have a lot more control, but that also means they have a lot more responsibility. Success therefore typically requires longer and tougher work. Over time, this may result in burnout and exhaustion. Next up is the B quadrant, or business quadrant. Most of the world's richest people are business owners. Lastly, the I, or the investment quadrant. Investors possess income-generating assets. True passive income can be found in this region. Investors in this quadrant typically have money saved up from the other three quadrants, which they put to work to generate additional revenue for themselves. There are several ways to achieve financial independence, but the majority of them eventually arrive at B and I on the right side of the quadrant. Therefore, learning the abilities and mindset necessary to make this turn to the right side will pay you if you want to achieve greater financial independence and freedom. So, to improve your cash flow, you must engage in those activities that belong to the business quadrant or investor quadrant. Now, let's talk about debts. Many people think that being debt-free is preferable, but in many cases, debt may be advantageous to your finances if it allows you to accumulate wealth. For instance, if you cannot afford to pay cash for a property, you might incur debt by taking out a mortgage. This, in turn, can enable you to invest your housing payments in real estate rather than continuing to rent. Mortgages and other loans are typically seen as good debt because they benefit the borrower by assisting in the accumulation of wealth. Many other types of debt, however, are not as good for your money, and they're called bad debts. What qualifies as good debt? Debt can be seen as good if it increases your ability to earn money and increases your net worth. Debt that significantly enhances your life and the lives of your family members might also do this. In a variety of circumstances, taking on debt can be advantageous for your financial stability overall. Borrowing money for education, business, and homes can be stated as good debts. There are many different ways to profit from real estate. You can first obtain a mortgage to purchase a house, occupy it, and then sell it for a profit. In the interim, you're also increasing your equity and may be eligible for tax benefits and tax breaks that are not offered to renters. Renting out residential real estate is another way to make money from it. There are a lot of practices that make the rich distinguish themselves from the poor. From their attitude to tax advantages, Kiyosaki enumerates several factors why the wealthy continue to amass larger fortunes regardless of what occurs in the global economy. The government adores it when you offer jobs and homes, claims Kiyosaki. In this manner, you encourage government activity. Unfortunately and unfairly, because they don't provide any of that, employees and self-employed people pay the highest rates of tax. Lending money to a state or local government body for a preset number of interest payments over a predetermined time frame is essentially what buying a municipal bond entails. Depending on where you live, state and local taxes may not be levied on municipal bond interest, in addition to being free from federal taxes. Investors find municipal bonds appealing because of tax-free interest payments. Investing can be a useful technique for increasing wealth. The advantageous tax treatment for long-term capital gains is another advantage of investing in stocks, mutual funds, bonds, and real estate. Making money is a major responsibility, as is ensuring that you invest or spend it wisely. It entails making sacrifices, concentrating, and strategizing around a prepared and carried out plan. That's it, guys. For more videos like this, subscribe to our channel. Before you go, turn on the notifications too. Bye!